to access educational and training opportunities at South African public in higher education institutions. By acting now, we address the historic delays in approving eligibility criteria and establish a clear and consistent framework for financial aid assessment. The board commits to applying this policy fairly and equitably, ensuring that both financial and academic eligibility is evaluated with transparency and consistency for new applicants as well as continuing students. I think the matter you have all been waiting for, funding decisions, disbursements, and the budget shortfall. During this academic year, payments to universities were processed promptly, ensuring the timely disbursement of student allowances and supporting a smooth progression of the academic year. However, in March 2025, Nsfas disclosed to Parliament that in 2025, Nsfas is oversubscribed. This oversubscription amounts to 10.6 billion for the university sector. This is due to several key factors. The increasing number of students qualifying for higher education, the ongoing cost of living crisis, which has expanded household eligibility for Nsfas support, and declining state resources in real terms, impacting funding availability. Section 14.3 of the Nsfas Act explicitly prohibits overspending beyond the allocated budget, and we had to close the Nsfas registration portal. This has resulted in students who have been unable to register, including university students who applied during the DVET cycle, students whose registration data was received after the 21st of March cut-off date, approved appeals which cannot be funded, second semester registrations, and second semester first-time entrants. Working with the Department of Higher Education and Training as well as National Treasury, we remain committed to ensuring that no student is unfairly excluded. Nsfas has already submitted a request for the utilization of other funds to supplement the shortfall. It's important to stress that this is a shortfall and not a bailout, and that the new board and acting CEO are committed to correcting this course. We must face the truth. The root cause lies in a funding model that promised more than the resources that are available, without adjusting eligibility criteria accordingly. That is why the new board has approved the development of the policies and strategies mentioned earlier to govern eligibility and the conditions for financial aid, ensuring that from the next academic year, Nsfas remains within budget while still serving those most in need. At this point, I hand over to the acting CEO to give you the operational details.
All right, good afternoon, colleagues, members of the media. Let me recognize the chairperson of the board. I'll pick up where the chair would have left off. Of course, Nsfas faces quite a significant budget shortfall for the 25 academic year. In terms of our allocation, we have a 39 billion allocation for the university sector. We have disbursed almost 73% of that already, approximating close to 29 billion, but we do face a budget shortfall of about 10.6 billion. We are in the process of working with both the Department of Higher Education and Training as well as the National Treasury to obtain the requisite concurrence and approval in order to plug the shortfall and enable students who are facing blocked registrations to be able to register for the 2025 academic year. On the TVET side, we have an allocated budget of about 9 billion rand, of which we've disbursed already about 6.4 billion rand, and about 70% of the TVET budget has been disbursed. I think it's important to recognize that within the current funding system, we have about 783,000 students, 576,000 in the university sector, and 206,000 in the TVET sector. Nsfas is one of the largest bursary support funds in the world here. We've also noted substantial progress in terms of the time it takes us to make funding decisions, as well as the upfront payments that we were able to effect both to universities and TVET colleges. The funding that Nsfas provides has a downstream impact on the higher education sector and is critical in supporting the sector in being able to meet its operational and strategic objectives. This proactive approach ensured timely payment of allowances for February 2025, and we have quite an effective and efficient rate of disbursing allowances with no incidences or no major incidences of late allowances during the 2025 academic year. We are continuously working to strengthen our disbursement system as we pursue long-term ICT strategies to correct Nsfas's historical legacy ICT systems. The next part that I'd like to touch on is the appeals that students file. During the 2025 academic year, we received about 87,000 appeals from first-time entrants, returning and continuing applications. All of the appeals have been processed, resulting in about 38,200 approvals. But as the chairperson of the board would have indicated, due to the funding deficit, a cohort of these students have not been able to register, even though they have approved appeals. We have rejected 14,700 appeals, and we have close to 6,000 that are unresolved, and mainly these relate to second semester, which are currently being processed by our team. We do pick up instances where students do not submit all documents required for the appeals process. Once those reach 30 days without resolution, they unfortunately have to be closed. And we encourage all students to check the status of their appeals and to submit missing documents if necessary. Just to touch on the appeals process, applicants have a 30-day window to lodge an appeal following a rejection, and a further 30 days to submit any outstanding documents. This process involves multiple exchanges between the applicant and the appeal officers to ensure that the correct documentation is provided. This iterative process can result in delays, causing Nsfas to miss the targeted deadline for completing appeal resolutions. Some appeals remain unresolved for extended periods, primarily due to the nature of the supporting documents submitted by the applicants. However, Nsfas aims to conclude all appeal processes within 45 days. I want to move to student accommodation. Of course, this is quite an area that attracts a lot of interest from students, from institutions, as well as from members of the media. I think one of the things that we have picked up is that in Nsfas adopting the student accommodation pilot project, the necessary feasibility work, risk assessment, governance framework, and policy provisions were not put in place to adequately manage what is a very complex function. Nsfas, through the new board, is reviewing the student accommodation management and third-party relationships. This review involves the entirety of student accommodation, which includes the mandate, the roles and responsibilities, the procurement processes, and the third-party solution partners and accreditation partners, contracting arrangements, potential breaches of contract, as well as potential fraud, corruption, and maladministration. The review is being conducted by ENS Africa, who are sourcing the necessary legal and forensics expertise as and when required. The student accommodation pilot project has also been scoped in by the Special Investigating Unit as part of the proclamation into the affairs of Nsfas. The review started in January 2025, and we are intending to complete it before the end of September, and to announce our student accommodation plans, including a student accommodation framework, by the end of October 2025. Nsfas does not want to pass the student accommodation function around like a football, and we want to ensure that we build the correct governance framework, policy environment, internal controls, skills and capacity, as well as business processes to ensure that the student accommodation function is appropriately managed. Consequence management will be implemented against officials or service providers found to have acted inappropriately in the student accommodation sector. In the 2025 academic year, the student accommodation pilot covered over 329,000 beds across 23 TVET colleges and 17 universities. Nsfas continues on a monthly basis to make substantial payments to landlords who submit legitimate claims. We therefore continue to urge accommodation providers to submit claims according to guidelines to avoid student evictions. We do pick up instances where accommodation providers do house students which do not qualify for accommodation, that is, they are on the transport allowance, as well as housing students which are not funded by Nsfas and try to claim from Nsfas. Yeah. Again, we recommend that accommodation providers work with us, and our team has gone throughout the country on provincial visits to assist accommodation providers one-on-one in reconciling the students that they're housing versus Nsfas's global funding list to make sure that all accommodation claims are settled timeously. Nsfas remains on hand to support any student anywhere who is facing challenges with student accommodation. All they need to do is reach out to us, and we will do what is within our powers to be able to assist. I want to touch on two legal matters that also are quite topical in the media. As we know, Nsfas is pursuing the termination of the direct payment partners contracts. That is quite a complex legal matter that is finding expression in the Western Cape High Court, in the Special Tribunal, as well as in the Supreme Court of Appeal. We are collaborating with our attorneys of record, as well as the Special Investigating Unit, in ensuring termination of those contracts. Furthermore, we know that the Nsfas head office attracts a lot of attention. Once again, we want to expressly put on record our position as the board in saying that we do not support Nsfas's continued presence in its head office. We do consider the fact that we are paying substantial amounts of money in an office that does not necessarily speak to Nsfas's needs and requirements, as well as the current contextual challenges facing the higher education sector. In this regard, we are supporting the Special Investigating Unit in lodging the matter with the Special Tribunal, and we will abide by the decision of the court. And as expressed by the chairperson of the board, we are committed to a relocation process once the lease is terminated. In terms of loan recoveries, we are calling on former beneficiaries who received loans before the decision to switch to bursaries before 2018 to repay their student debt as required by their signed agreements. These repayments are due once a debtor earns above 30,000 per year. The minimum monthly repayment amount is determined by income level. Debtors who earn above 30,000 per year, who are not currently making the minimum repayments, may have their accounts handed over to an external debt collector. The following entities are currently duly appointed and authorized by Nsfas to act as debt collectors in respect of student loan recoveries. These are Kumalo Masondo Attorneys, New Integrated Credit Solutions, Ngube Incorporated Attorneys, Mokalyu Revenue Solutions, and Q-Link Holdings. Nsfas intends to strengthen its loan recovery unit to collect debt that is owed to it. We have an obligation in the PFMA to collect all outstanding debt owed to Nsfas. This confirmation is issued to provide assurance to debtors, employers, and stakeholders regarding the external debt collectors currently authorized to engage in Nsfas loan recovery schedules. Applicants must note the following important conditions. All repayments must be made only into the Nsfas official recoveries bank account as published on our website. Authorized debt collectors are mandated to facilitate recoveries in line with Nsfas policies. Debt collectors will never request payment into any account other than the official Nsfas account. And Nsfas may periodically update the list of authorized external debt collectors. We have also introduced since 2024 the Missing Middle Loan Fund to support students who do not find themselves within the Nsfas eligibility criteria. We have approved applications within the Missing Middle Loan Fund, although these are not at the scale and size of which we expected them to be. We will in anticipation of the 2026 year, increase awareness over the Missing Middle Loan Fund. And we really encourage society to look into the fund, as no student in South Africa should be left behind as a result of financial exclusion. Spokesperson, I'll pause there for now and hand back to
you. Thank you very much, Acting CEO. May I request the Chair to conclude the presentation?
Thank you, Wasim Ismail. So, today I'd like to conclude to say Nsfas remain committed to delivering accurate and timely student financial aid. We want to appreciate the collaboration and support from Department of Higher Education and Training and other external stakeholders to ensure transparency and accountability in the management of Nsfas. The board's focus on addressing operational challenge, building institutional capacity, and implementing technological solutions will significantly improve Nsfas performance. Nsfas will continue to act with justness, fairness, and responsibility, ensuring that today's students succeed and tomorrow's generations inherit a sustainable system of opportunity. Thank you, Ishmael.
Thank you very much, and the Acting CEO, for the statement. We now go to the second part of our presentation. Media to ask clarity-seeking questions based on the statement that is issued. You will first identify yourself and the organization that you represent, and the question or questions that you want to pose. As I've indicated, we do have online colleagues who might also ask questions on the other hand, so we will give them an opportunity as well to pose questions. Let me start here in Pretoria. By show of hand, you shall be recognized. You will be the first, the second, in a third, in that order.
Good afternoon, Dozo Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. First question is a little bit of clarity around closing that funding gap. Speaking to National Treasury, that it itself has its own challenges of raising funds for the country's fiscus. So what are the terms, if we do have preview to that we are having with the National Treasury, but also continuing to raise that funding outside of chasing off the existing loans out there from previous students? Will we be going to market? Do we have an idea of where we'll be going to fill that gap? And if we could also get just a little bit more insight into these 6 priority projects and how long they will take. We did hear Minister Manamela saying Nsfas should be turned around in 3 months, which is a big promise. So how long will it take us to really see that turnaround actually being experienced by students on the ground? Thank you.
Thank you, Ntokozo. Skule?
Thank you, Inspire. It's Pizzo Magamani.
Sorry.
Just unpack the amount, the debt amount, how much you owed, and from which period, which years. But also, you mentioned corruption. Also, just unpack it, make it simple for us, because we don't know what is it that the students or the beneficiaries of Nsfas loans are doing, which happens to be corruption to you as the accommodation. right, come next year, 2026, we'll not hear what we've been hearing all the years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Piso.